Hey Retro Community, how are y'all doing today? Let's get on with part 2 to this iMac series as part of Marcintosh month. This is going to be part 2 out of I have no idea. So what I want to do today is get the back casing removed and take a look inside, make sure there's no other damage, get a closer look at the capacitors, things like that, as well as a little bit of a light dusting or a heavy dusting depending on how much we find in there, as well as putting in a hard drive, or maybe even better yet, a CF to ID adapter if it'll work in here. If not, I do have a couple of spinning discs that I can try in here. Hopefully it'll work. If it does, great. If not, then I'll figure something out. But I'm not going to take off the front outer bezel just because of the fact that the inner bezel is still destroyed. I'm going to see if I can try to find an option for it, not necessarily a replacement. They are not very easy to come by. But we'll get a cleaning inside, also cleaning outside. There's some marker or pen or something on top right over here, which we'll get a better look at later. So let me go ahead and get this on its side at this point so I can get to the bottom. Well, you know what? No, I'll face it down because I'm going to have to do that anyway to remove the back housing. So I'm going to get a towel real quick to lay down so we don't potentially scratch that. Even though this is soft, I still don't want to take any chances. I'll be right back. All right, let's go ahead and lay this on its side. So we can see there are two screws here for sure that have to come out. And I believe there are a couple of screws behind this VGA outdoor here as well. So I need to get a spudger. Oh, there are four. Take that back. I don't think there's any here inside the RAM slot and the airport card slot. But since I've got this open, let me take a look at the RAM real quick since we didn't get a good look at that in the first part. 64 megs, so more than likely this has got 128 in here, especially since it's the same memory modules. So let me get these screws out. And it looks to be that the outer screws are a little longer than the inner screws, so keep that in mind. They are not quite the same. And then these two down here. Oh, I just noticed that it's cracked over here, as well as potentially cracked here, although that could be just a seam. I'll have to take a closer look in a little bit. These are definitely completely different screws altogether, so. And I think those are all the screws that need to be removed. Yeah, and then this just lifts out. It's not too, okay, it's a little dusty. We'll have to give that a little bit of a cleaning. The legs can be removed with these screws here internally. Speaker grills here. Looks like the back half of the slot for the optical drive is yellowed, but who cares? It's hidden behind that, so we should be okay. And then of course the next thing to remove will be this I/O shield, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, it appears, and those are going to be different yet again. And then you have to be careful when removing this because of the VGA port up here. A little bit of dust in here too, again to be expected, but it's not horrible. And there's a look at the logic board along with the power supply that's over here. It is a separate PCB, so logic board goes this way, separate PCB to kind of even things out a bit. Looks like they removed the PRAM battery as well. Good job for whoever did that. I'm thinking that's a dog hair. Or maybe just hot glue, it's hard to say. don't see anything wrong. No capacitor leakage. This one's at an angle. That's fine. It's a little bit of a noisy footage right here because I'm zoomed in. It's all digital zoom, unfortunately. But as you can see, everything looks fine. These caps look fine with these caps as well. Let's move on to the power supply side of things. This one looks fine. These definitely look fine. This here is just some hot glue there. And the transformer and the capacitor in there looks like it's okay. So I think this logic board's in good shape. I mean, we know it boots because I heard it in the first part. It chimed and it had the flashing folder, meaning there's a missing disk. And yeah, the drive is missing. So that's good. The optical drive's still in there. So all in all, it's not too bad. It's actually not very dirty at all inside here. So I took a look around at my collection of old RAM, and I've got a couple of 128 megabyte modules here. They are PC133, but they should be just fine in here. They should downclock to PC100 just fine. So I can take this up to a max of 256 right now. It's got 128 with the 264 meg modules. 128, 256 megs of RAM are probably enough for this, considering the time period and everything, especially if I don't take it up to OS 10. We'll see. I may do that. I may do a dual boot, in which case I'm going to want that full gig of RAM. But for now, I think keeping it at 128, or like I said, going up to 256 should be enough. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go grab a PRAM battery, a CF to ID adapter, and a CF card. Probably thinking 32 gig, maybe 64 gig. And trying to figure out how to mount it in here because this is all metal and I don't want anything to short. And also giving the bottom housing a good cleaning. I don't want to remove this top housing because, again, I don't want to risk damaging the front bezel any more than it is already. So we'll give this a very light dusting and we'll put it back together, get an operating system on here, and make sure this actually works. Just because it gets to a flashing folder icon does not mean it works. So I'm going to make sure it works before I put any more effort into it. I will be back. So while I was doing some cleaning, I noticed it's a little bit of a rattle in the optical drive. And well, here's ultimately the result. I've taken it apart because it turns out there was a spring loose in there. And well, let me go grab the spring so I can show you what I mean. I don't know how clear it's going to come out on camera, but that's the spring there. And unfortunately, this piece here has been completely stretched out. And I tried boiling it because some springs will have muscle memory and will return to the original shape when heated up. This one did not, at least after 20 minutes. And I don't exactly have any kind of springs whatsoever, special replacement for this one. So this drive is probably not going to work. I mean, some of the mechanisms don't work perfectly anyway. And the drive's old, obviously. So I'm kind of at a standstill because I can't get an operating system on here without this drive. So I'm going to have to go ahead and order one. Maybe, and I don't know if these older Macs can boot off of USB. Maybe I can just grab a external drive or something and maybe I can install an operating system that way. Or alternatively, actually I wouldn't be able to do that either because I don't have access to another G3 Mac. So I guess I'm kind of dead in the water until I can get a new optical drive, hopefully one that works. I'm going to try to maybe order two, one that's an official Apple one, and then hopefully I can find a new old stock, just like a generic one, take the front bezel off and use that slot loading, of course, but we'll see. So a little bit of an update. I think I managed to get this thing back together. Whether it works or not is a different story. But I was able to get the spring kind of put back together. I don't have any footage because it was such a pain in the butt just to get it going and get the spring a little bit tighter. I ended up just clipping the stretched out part and bending one of the wire loop parts upward to give it a new loop to hook onto, and well, we'll see if it works or not. I'm hoping it does, because if it doesn't, I took a quick look online and I think I've only found one source for a replacement drive that is an actual official Apple part, although the drive itself is actually a Matsushita, which is Panasonic. They made a few of these types of drives with the Slim IDE connector on the left side, which is going to be required because of this adapter. They made them for some other manufacturers as well. I think there was a desktop computer that actually had a slimline drive for some reason, and they started at about $100. So I'm really hoping this works. So next, what we got to do is figure out how to mount this CF to ID adapter, and that's what I'm going to have to try and work out next. So this is actually will work with desktop and laptop IDE connections, although this would probably be a little bit more difficult to install in a laptop because you almost never have a ribbon cable. Usually it's just a direct connection like that. So we'll see. I mean, this will work on here. Fortunately, I just don't have a way of mounting it. This device only has 2 mount holes, and it's typically designed for a expansion slot bracket in the event you wanted to mount it in the back of a case. Now I do have 2.5 inch to 3.5 inch drive adapters. I have one like this and one like this. Fortunately, neither of these will really work from a mounting standpoint because, well, again, there's no way to actually attach that way. And even if I could, I still don't believe it would get me to the proper width. So, alternatively, like I've pretty much been doing ever since I started getting into this retro stuff, is just doing maybe some double-sided tape and just adhering it to the bottom of this cage here and calling it a day. I hate doing that only because over time the tape will loosen up and you have the potential of this then slipping and then shorting out. You have all these different pins and everything of, you know, these through-hole pins here. Having trouble speaking today apparently. And I can trim these back a little bit, but there's still always the possibility of a short. Could always put some Kapton tape over this and offer it some protection, so that might help a little bit. We'll see. I'll come up with something though, and when I do, I'll let you guys know what I did. So I think for now I'm just going to temporarily tape this down to the frame itself, the drive chassis, just to try and get this thing up and running to see if it even works. Well, we know that it works. We want to see if the optical drive works. I did find some 2.5 to 3.5 inch adapters online, but it's going to take a few days to get here. So I'm just going to set it in here for now, get everything as reassembled as I need to, just to test it, see if it'll boot off of the CD drive. If it does, great. We can proceed and get an operating system installed. If it doesn't, then I have to go and look for an actual replacement drive, which is going to be very difficult. Because as of the recording of this video, there's only one on eBay, and trying to find suitable replacements, you know, through other manufacturers, they're very expensive, as I said before. So I'll have to see if I can find maybe an alternate option. Maybe I can grab a standard slimline drive and somehow get an adapter. We'll see. But let me go ahead and get everything reassembled and continue on. All right, so now that I've got the cage back in here and I've got this, although I may need to reroute this, we'll see. Let me get the base reinstalled. Probably not going to install the RF shield for now because it's not really needed, just for testing purposes. Kind of like it without the RF shielding, to be honest with you. More of that 90s aesthetic with the transparent plastic and everything. I'll put this on just in case, but I don't think I need to worry about that at all. All right, let me get this flipped around and see if I can get it to boot. Ooh, doesn't like something. Probably, I think I know what it is. I forgot to reinstall this. All right, let's see now. High voltage, but no bong. That loud beep again. Huh, I'll have to look up that error code. All right, so I figured out a couple of things. One, turns out if you hold the power button and unboot, it will do that chime and then boot right into open firmware. Second thing I found out is that the reason that happens is because the power button was stuck. And, well, the button itself, the electrical portion of it's fine. It was the plastic part that pushes in. This little clip here broke off. Well, this one broke off. This one looks like it's probably okay, but this is made from ABS plastic, and just like the inner bezel, it's very fragile and flimsy, so I'm not surprised that broke. So I super glued it together. I'm going to let it sit for a while and hopefully dry up. I'm going to put the bottom case back on, and I'm just going to try to turn it on using a toothpick or something, see if we can get it to boot properly. So a slight problem with my plan, the outer shell part of the plastic button doesn't come out because there's this plastic strip inside that's like plastic welded in there, and so this button does not come out. So I'm gonna have to try to start it up on its side. Hopefully that doesn't break anything. Hopefully not. And the optical drive does not seem to work. It's not pulling anything, so this drive is definitely dead. Sucks because, again, I have to try to find a replacement now for it, and I have to get this disc unstuck. Also, it didn't bong when it turned on. I'm not sure why that is the case. I don't know if I have something disconnected. But it does boot up still, so I didn't break it completely. But yeah, so since the optical drive isn't working, I've got to come up with a plan B in the meantime. So unfortunately, part 2 is just going to be this, and we'll have to come up with a part 3. If you guys have any suggestions or leads, like I said, on an optical drive, especially a bezel, let me know. If you guys have any other tips or suggestions, send them my way through comments. Otherwise, that'll be the end of this part 2 here. We'll try to pick back up in part 3. If you like this video, hit the thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed yet, feel free to do so, but there's never any obligation. I do appreciate it, though. If you didn't like the video, hit the thumbs down, but please leave a comment below as to why, so I can try to use that to help things going forward. Otherwise, thanks all, and I'll catch you later.